Hey guys, continuing our videos on Iamblichus' Exhortation to Philosophy, chapter 5. This is towards the end of the chapter. He's talking about contemplations. And Iamblichus brings in an interesting idea here. He starts to talk about actions. And what he says is, we must contemplate the divine not for the actions of men. Because if we contemplate the divine for the actions of men, we are taking the unlimited, the divine, and putting boundaries and strains on it. We're defiling it. We're bringing it into the essentially into the physical matter for the purpose of using it in the physical world, but not for the purpose of ascent, but for the purpose of making our physical lives better. As I understand it, this is what he means when he says we must not contemplate the divine for the purposes of actions. So let me check if that's more or less it. For the sake of actions, he says. Yeah, he says it is defilement of the divine. We enslave the divine to try and make it useful for men. So instead, what I understand he means is we should constantly be striving to contemplate the divine for the sake of the divine. To keep rising higher and higher, rather than how can we, let's say, make more money if we understand this part of God in the physical reality, or how can we get more fame or power or so on in the physical reality. Yeah, that's how I understand it. Yeah, and it kind of makes sense. Remember what when he says that we should try to control the animal part of ourselves through self-control, temperance, so that we'll learn more about who we are. If we're contemplating the divine for the benefit of using it in the physical world, then essentially we're stimulating the desire of remember the three-part soul, the desire, the ambition, and the divine. If we're using the contemplations of divine for that, as I understand it, for the actions of men, as he says, then we're stimulating the lower parts of our soul, the desire part and the ambitious part. And those parts are mortal, they're physical. This is what they care about, the physical reality. By stimulating them, we're giving them power, and essentially we're weakening our connection with the divine part of ourselves. This is how I understand it. Unless the divine part of ourselves is so powerful that maybe then it is worth stimulating some of those lower parts. But even then, if we look at some of the masters, we do not quite see it like that. If we look at Proclus, for example, from what I remember, his from Marinus, his autobiography of Proclus. Proclus was busy in the physical life, but only to the extent that was kind of needed. If his friends asked him for money, he'd give them money. If somebody needed help, he'd give them help. But as Marinus says, if I understood him right, his mind, he himself, in his mind, Proclus was in the celestial world. Which is why things that happened that didn't go according to plan in the physical life did not bother him the slightest bit. He was experiencing the higher worlds and the states of the higher worlds, the happiness and peace of the higher world, while his body was doing the things that needed to be done in the physical world. This is how I understood it. So this is possible if we contemplate the divine for the sake of the divine, for the sake of ascent, rather than how to make our physical reality more comfortable, more wealthy, and so forth. Then we keep ascending and ascending. That's how I understood it. That's it. The next video we'll talk a couple of more things about from chapter 5, and then we'll move on to chapter 6. As always, the point of these videos is for you to buy the actual book and read it, because these videos don't do any justice to the book. Read the book, buy the book, and find the publisher that does it in your language and read it. Have a good day. Bye-bye.